All right, everybody, we are live with the Combatcast, and we are coming off a big event this past weekend, UFC 311. But before we talk about that and anything else today, let's talk about our sponsor.
All right, we'd like to thank the sponsor Game Up for supporting the podcast. They make a thirst-quenching adult beverage with a special blend of electrolytes. Comes in 4 great flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape.
That's right, and it's low carb, only 110 calories, so you can just enjoy it, no guilt. Anything else coming up before we get started today for the show, Chevy?
Yeah, February 1st, UFC Fight Night Adesanya versus Imavov. That's a 12 p.m. Eastern card from Saudi Arabia. Looking like a pretty tasty card.
Yeah.
And then February 8th, UFC 312 Duplessis versus Strickland from Australia. Tatiana Suarez and Weili Zhang are the co-main event, and the rest of the card looks like garbage. Like absolute garbage. Very bad. And then February 15th, UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Rodriguez. That's RoboCop. So that'll be a fun one. Someone's probably going to sleep in that one.
Yeah, so we'll see how. I'm looking for that Saudi Arabia card at least. I just think that that'll be a fun one, and I always like the early aspect of those cards too. Before we get started with UFC 311, you want to talk about the Ultimate Fighter a little bit?
Yeah, I think you're with me here. I haven't watched the Ultimate Fighter in at least consistently in quite some time. But DC, Daniel Cormier, and Chael Sonnen were announced as season 33's coaches.
Yeah, I think that's a great move, at least.
Yeah, that would be fun. That could get me to watch some episodes or at least start the show. You know, that's going to be some good banter there for sure.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, we'll see. To me, it's a tough show to watch just because, I don't know. I feel like the format's kind of played itself out. I'm not really into reality TV as much. So you're basically almost looking at like Apex fight cards, you know? There's no ambiance, there's no fans. And so you have to kind of really get behind the story. It's fine. But
it was different back in the day, too, because there weren't fights every weekend. And now there's fights every weekend. So you're getting your fix if you want to see fights.
Exactly. So it's you could argue that UFC is, like a lot of things are oversaturated right now. So I still love my UFC, but do I need the Ultimate Fighter on top of everything else? No, I really don't. But we'll see. I'm happy for DC. I was happy. I'm blanking out his name. So we have the producer who's going to go into the Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah, I didn't catch his name on the broadcast.
Craig something. He was part of the people, I guess, who produced UFC, the Ultimate Fighter 1, Season 1, which, of course, did change the UFC around. So pretty much anybody responsible for that show probably deserves a big thank you.
Yeah. I don't know about UFC Hall of Fame. I think maybe that should be for
fighters.
Well, at least, a little more closely tied to the actual sport of fighting. But it was a very important event, like you said. So respect to that guy.
All right, let's get to the talk of the weekend. UFC 311. And as you can see by this picture, things changed because this is the picture we had last week. And that was not what ended up being our main event. This fight card got turned around. Arman Tsarukyan got hurt, had some problems with his back. He had to pull out. Renato Moicano pulled out of his fight with Dariush and plugged into the main event. And you were talking about, it was very cool for Dariush, at least. He got paid, as he should have, his fight money and his win bonus as well.
Yeah, and I guess promised a good fight next, but you take that with a grain of salt. The win and show money is the important part because, he did all the work leading up to it. He made weight. Wasn't his fault. He was not able to fight. So good on the UFC for doing that, but also it should be expected at that point.
Maybe Moicano or even Arman Tsarukyan, if they don't want to give him a title shot right away. Maybe that could be the matches next for Dariush. Either way.
Arman would be a good shout because that'd be a good way to propel yourself maybe closer to a title shot if you're Dariush. Right. And Dana did mention that Arman's going to have to work his way back up. I don't think he was too happy with. He had an existing injury, and he ends up pulling out with 1 day's notice.
Yeah,
that's a lot of work for the UFC.
I'm not doubting the validity if he was hurt or anything. I just don't think he liked the way things were handled when it got to this point.
Right.
So, anyway, before we get to this main card, was there anything else you wanted to bring up from this card?
Yeah, Jaltian Almeida and Sergey Spivak, that ended up on the main card. So we'll just go over that now, though. But Almeida TKO round 1. He caught Sergey early, and Sergey just couldn't recover, and Almeida kind of swarmed him. So good to see him get a finish after that. I guess he has all finishes except for Derek Lewis. So respect it.
Yeah, Almeida, I mean, I enjoyed that fight a lot. It was kind of interesting because there were moments where he was down in this when they were scrambling, but heavyweights,
he's a smaller heavyweight too. So
yes.
And Sergey was on a good streak, so it's an impressive win for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to see him fight maybe like I was thinking about today, maybe Curtis Blades. Or
Volkov would be good, I think.
Volkov would be good, or Sergey Pavlovich.
Oh yeah,
big heavy hands though.
Yes, but, that'd be tough. That's a tough ask for anyone.
Yeah, but if you can get by that, then we got to start looking at you as a
contender
for the title. Yeah.
Also on the card, Peyton Talbot, the hype train up and comer versus veteran Raoni Barcelios. Barcelios just stopped him basically. Got a decision win. Good learning opportunity for Peyton Talbot. Took it on the chin. Tough loss for him on the prelims, though. Let's get into the main card, though. Let's start off with Kevin Hollan versus Reinier De Ridder.
Yeah, RDR. I think the announcers had it best. Kevin Hollan's capable of getting some good wins at middleweight, but when he runs up with guys that are bigger with him and they can get him to the ground, he seems to struggle with that at times. And that was the case here. I thought this was a much more impressive performance for RDR than his initial first fight in the UFC. Not that, great to get a win, but I felt like he was very impressive here over Hollan. He's already asking for a top 5 opponent. I don't know about that, but I got an idea for a fight I think you would like. How about a top 10? How about Brendan Allen? The guy that can go everywhere. He's multifaceted. Let's see what those two could do against each other. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, RDR coming over being a double champ from another organization, you would think that would warrant, getting into that top 5, especially with 2 wins, 2 finishes under his belt. But I think Brendan Allen is a tough ask for anyone in the division, especially him grappling-wise, because Brendan's definitely more well-rounded. Sure. But back to this fight, RDR did look much better. We didn't really get to see him on the feet very much, which is where he's going to struggle. But not if he just takes people down quick like he did to Kevin. Kevin's really just not at the level at middleweight. Any grapplers are going to pretty much dismantle him. Once he's on his back, he just has nothing. He can't get up. So the broadcast talked about it. He doesn't like the lifestyle of having to cut and watch everything he eats, and it's a lot of discipline to be at welterweight for him. So I don't know how he has got a few losses in a row now, though. So you got to make some decisions. You want to be a UFC fighter, you probably can't do it at this level. They're not going to give you the matchups that you're looking for. You might have to make that cut to welterweight. All right, moving on. What was going to be Beneil Dariush, Renato Moicano did not happen, so we'll move on to we already talked about the Sergey and Jaltian. Very exciting fight, which we were excited for going into this. Yes. Jiri Prochazka versus Jamahal Hill.
Yes, and I love the movement of Prochazka here. He's always unorthodox, but he seemed a little better defensively, and that's not to say much because he was still getting hit at times with this. But his striking looked great. And, I had picked him here because I kind of went with my heart because I just felt like, but you had a great point besides, you love Prochazka, but you thought because of the way he fights and how powerful Jamahal hits, he was probably going to get finished. And I kept thinking that when I was watching this fight. Even though Prochazka was looking good, he was getting caught at different times. And I thought, I think Chevy was right. But, when you start swinging like that and you're going back and forth, and Jamahal Hill, honestly, he was a little reckless himself out there. And he was really trying to take him out and maybe didn't respect Prochazka's power enough because maybe he thought, hey, all right, I took this guy's best shots, and he wasn't expecting to still be there. But it was. And when that happened and we started going back and forth, Prochazka was able to finish him. Great win for Prochazka. Great story. I'm happy for this guy. I wanted to get an opponent for everybody this week on the main card. So Jan Blachowicz is who I think would be a nice fight for Prochazka next, although it's a tough ask because Blachowicz can wrestle too as well. So it's going to be interesting. But
we haven't seen Jan in a while either.
We haven't. And he's definitely a guy. I know they just announced Ankalaev is going to get the next shot at Alex Pereira. And Jan Blachowicz is the only guy. He went to a draw with him. So I think that looking at that, I'd like to see him maybe fight Prochazka next.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. But what a fight this one was. You're right, Yuri did improve his defense a bit, and that allowed him to land more. And I think that was ultimately what had Jamahal rushing a little bit, is he got hurt like quite a few times. And I think he went, okay, I just got to bite down and land the shot to put him out because he's landing on me and I can't get out of the way. So, good for Yuri, but I think that's not enough head movement, not enough defense that's going to protect him against Pineda, because the shots that Jamahal landed on him, Jamal's powerful, but he's not Pineda. So it's just a different level. So Yuri's got to keep working on that. He had his hands up a little bit, but it was mostly the head movement, not so much the blocking shots with his hands that was improved. But improvement is improvement. He got a great win, good finish. Respect to Jamahal Hill. I know everybody hates the guy. He is he's
a great fighter, though.
Yeah, he is, and he weathered a lot of damage and still, was coming forward. So good on him. I saw somebody, I wish I could remember who it was so I could give them credit, but they mentioned that Jamahal Hill is a perfect heel for the UFC currently, because although you watch him and you want him to lose, he talks a lot of shit, but it's not disrespectful. It's not about people's religion. It's not about their family and all this other kind of stuff. Yeah. He's just an annoying personality. And that's, it makes it fun. So you don't dislike the guy. You still respect him, but you don't want him to win. So you're intrigued. You want to watch his fights, but and it's like Floyd Mayweather effect. But I just thought that was a good take, because I don't wish the guy any ill will, but I definitely want to see him lose when he fights. So. Yeah,
no, that's an interesting point. Also, Prochazka got a performance of the night for this. I thought he got fight of the night, but
co-main event was definitely worthy of the fight of the night that it won. So Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov.
I'm glad you brought this up. Okay, I watched this the day after, and I had a hectic Sunday.
So did I.
This is the one fight, though, because of the way I was watching it. I didn't get the really good grasp on it. I didn't get to watch fight. This is the narrative I got. I had no idea it was this exciting of a fight that it got the fight of the night over that last fight. It's kind of what I thought would happen. No, I did pick Umar, but what I thought if Merab won was going to be the thing, and I think we both talked about this, was cardio. Like, it felt back and forth in the early rounds. Umar, had his moments, and I thought maybe even round 1-2 from some of the stuff I saw, it might have even looked like he was edging out. But as time went on, Merab just kept looking stronger and stronger. And I think we talked about this with Umar in the Corey Sandhagen fight, that he looked tired at different times, but he was still able to perform, still look good. So I was wondering if that's just part of what it was. But when you're going in there with Merab, it's just like, if there's a Hall of Fame, we might have said this before, for cardio, this guy's probably getting his own entire wing. Like, I've never seen anybody with this kind of cardio that I can recall on a level like this. Like, it's incredible. and he is just literally wearing down and tiring out these other elite fighters. I got nobody else to really fight for Merab next. Peter Yan, I guess you could do again because he probably should be next. But at this point, like Merab, he's going to have to defend his belt a few times. But I don't know until, somebody emerges. We have not seen anybody right now that I feel can beat this guy at bantamweight.
Yeah, I assume O'Malley is going to get a rematch or whatever. But yeah, this fight was phenomenal. Yeah, you have it pretty much right. I thought Umar won 1 and 2, and not a lot changed except he just slowed down a little bit.
Right.
And Merab looked much better on the feet. He was not outmatched like I thought he would be. I mean, definitely not as technical a striker, but and he wasn't just diving for takedowns recklessly like he does against a lot of guys. He was crashing in, blitzing in, landing, and swinging hard, too. He wanted to get a knockout, I think. But, he took some damage, but ultimately in those first couple rounds, he landed as many as he got. And then 3, 4, and 5, Umar was getting tired, and Merab started mixing in a couple takedowns here or there. He broke the record for most takedowns in the UFC, which Umar said that wasn't going to happen against him. But he did. And then, he was also landing some shots. Respect to Umar, he was still dangerous in there, but Merab stayed focused. Khabib was in the corner. I think he knew that Umar was losing, and he was trying to tell him, just use your hands. Like, don't go for takedowns. Don't be throwing kicks. Just use your hands to try to conserve energy. But Umar kept trying to throw kicks and stuff like that, even though he was so tired. And ultimately, it was just the cardio like we thought it might be. But respect to Merab. He earned his nickname, The Machine. He really is, like you said, in a level above everyone else in these elite athletes for sure, cardio-wise. So respect to him.
Yeah, for
sure. Very happy he won.
Yeah, he's a different level. The only thing I'll say about O'Malley as a future opponent, out of all the guys, because Merab lost his first couple fights in the UFC that were close, but once he turned that corner and he became like this different animal, and that's progressed and gotten worse. O'Malley is the only guy in that last fight where if you look at that last round, everything where O'Malley started to turn it up a little bit and decided to really take some chances. It looks like he was able to catch Merab at different times.
You hurt him to the body at one point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd say for anybody, that might make sense. I'd say Yan would still be the other guy, but I got to favor Merab heavily over both those guys. And if he defeats O'Malley and Yan next, you know what I mean? And there's nobody emerging. Like, he is probably a guy that I would say you might want to look at.
Corey needs to win a fight and get a shot because they haven't fought before.
That's true too, because Corey and styles make fights, and I like Corey Sandhagen, but I don't know. Merab he's a wild man.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to this main event. So it's Islam Makachev versus Renato Moicano.
I love Money Moicano. I was happy that he had this opportunity. I wish it would have went a little better for him, but basically, the moment he got taken down, right in the first round, there was no answer, and this is where we talk about there's levels to this, right? Money Moicano, Renato Moicano, he is an elite UFC fighter. Don't get it twisted. He's capable of beating a lot of top guys, but man, Islam Makachev, like, this is one of obviously he's the champion, but I mean, when you pull all the fighters in these lower weight classes, featherweight, lightweight, like, this is one of the best fighters, not only in the world, he's arguably the best lightweight of all time, possibly at this point. He's definitely in the discussion, I don't know what you do with him next. He's another one. If Justin Gaethje, Hooker, whoever wins that fight, that could be a fun fight. I don't think him and Justin have ever fought. I know he did fight Hooker at one point. Dan Hooker is a different fighter than he was then. By the way, something we didn't talk about. Happy Dan Hooker's got that opportunity. But yeah, other than that, I don't really know where Islam Makachev will go next, other than at some point looking for a double championship before he retires, because I know he wants that. And I don't see anybody taking the belt off of him in this weight class currently, much like Merab.
Yeah. Moicano, he stepped in on the 1 day's notice, but obviously he was preparing for a fight, so he was ready.
Right.
And he actually clipped Islam early on the feet, but Islam gets the takedown way too easy, and then Renato's rushing to get back up, and he leaves his neck out there to get Darce. So I think that's 2 back-to-back Darce chokes for Islam. You know, I love a Darce myself, but I'm sure that Renato's very disappointed. But, you know, to go out so early in the first round in your, you know, could be his only title shot, very disappointing, but it was always going to be tough for him. Shout out to Moicano. And yeah, Islam. So obviously the regular move would be to move up to 170 and challenge for the belt there. But, and we've probably discussed this before, but Belal and Islam have trained together. They're buddies, you know, like Muslim brother kind of thing, that they're not going to fight each other. So, I don't know if Belal goes up to 185, or we talked a little bit about this before. There's been talks about maybe Islam jumps from 155 to 185. A lot of tough ass up there for him. I know he is very big. He doesn't look like in the cage, but outside the cage, he's a very big guy, but not 185 guys big. So,
you know who ultimate dream fight scenario I'd like to see? It would never happen. Just want to point this out. But it would be against Habib. Like if Habib had come back, like just to see those two at the
skills wise, yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like that would be a fun, like, wow, I'd like to watch that just to see how it plays out.
Yeah. That would be fun. I think Islam's just more well-rounded. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like at this point, like I don't know. Like, I mean, I think Dana said he was the best lightweight of all time in the press conference after the fact, but I mean, that's tough to say, you know, when you got Habib and all these other, but I mean, he's in a conversation for sure. I have a hard time to see, like what you just said, he's more well-rounded than Habib. So it's like, you know,
but I mean, and so a lot of people, it was just, can you stop Habib's wrestling? Because that's all he's going to do. And I would say Islam would have the best chance, you know, to hold him off long enough to, do something on the feet. But
let him up. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, you mentioned the Dana White talking about him being the greatest of all time. He also concedes that Islam is now the number 1 pound for pound over John Jones. Finally got some sense. But that is what it is. I don't know if that's super important to Islam, but we'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, great night of fights. UFC 311 was a fun card. Looks a little better than UFC 312 to me. I think we talked about this in our group chat a little bit. UFC 312, you got a title fights, and then it's kind of become this like Australia heavy card thing where I just I think at one point
got like Jake Matthews on there, and Justin Taffa, like not main event on a pay-per-view fight, guys.
The thing is, I think Australia market, they do better when they actually put a lot of their own fighters there, and they still are so strong in Australia. So they get away with that when they put a couple times. But as for people who are watching these pay-per-views all the time, like me and you, we're like, well, I know this is not a top level. Right. So, yeah, I used to really
pay $80 for those, you know?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I used to really look forward to the Australia cards. But to me, a lot of the Australian MMA fighters are not where they were once at one point. So now it's like, okay, well, once you get done with the top of the card, I'm not really is interested in a lot of these undercard fights, at least not on a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? I am excited for the main and co-main, though. Tatiana Suarez, undefeated.
Yeah.
You know, maybe one of the only girls that has a real chance against Weili. And then obviously the Strickland Dricus one. I thought Strickland won the first one. It was very close, but Dricus has only gotten better, so we'll see.
I like Tatiana. Great, size, strength. Weili has just looked like unbelievable since she started training with Cejudo, and working on that elite wrestling. And so I don't know. I like Weili, but we'll see what happens.
Yep.
But all right,
no fights this weekend. So We just talked about 311. Next week, we'll be talking about the Saudi Arabia card. February 1st, UFC Fight Night, Adesanya versus Imavov. That's a fun one. There's some other great fights on there too. Shara Bullet, you mentioned last week. And then February 8th, UFC 312, Duplessis versus Strickland from Australia. And then February 15th, UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Rodriguez, 7 p.m. Eastern in the Apex.
All right. A lot of fun fights coming up. Guys, thank you for tuning in and enjoy some Game Up.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store.